Hard work made your grandfather rich, but hard work will keep you poor. You live in a time where working harder only makes you easier to tax, where loyalty to a nation is rewarded with inflation, where freedom has been quietly swapped for convenience. And nobody told you, because you're not supposed to know. You're supposed to stay in the room, keep working, keep saving, keep trusting the same system that's bleeding you dry with smiles, apps, and polite slogans. The modern state doesn't enslave with chains. It enslaves with paperwork, pensions, and propaganda. And while you're doing everything right, the sovereign individual is already gone. Let me tell you about Alex. 5 years ago, Alex was just like you. Same 9-to-5 grind, same tax forms, same quiet hope that things would get better. He wasn't a genius. He wasn't born rich, but he saw the cracks before anyone else. Today, while we're talking, Alex is managing his entire encrypted business from a villa in Madeira. He didn't protest. He just disappeared from the system. And in this video, I'm going to show you the exact map he used. You didn't see him leave. He didn't ask permission. He didn't post a goodbye. He vanished through the walls. Today, somewhere in the world, he's sitting under a quiet sky. His money is encrypted. His identity is untouchable. His income has no borders. His future isn't negotiated every 4 years. It's self-authored, sovereign, silent. You were taught to vote for change. He realized escape was faster. You were taught to build a resume. He built an invisible empire. You were taught to contribute. He opted out. But now, you're starting to hear the cracks. Cracks in the economy, cracks in the system, cracks in your own belief that this path still leads somewhere. That's why you're here. You feel it, don't you? That this room we're in, it's not stable. It's flickering, tilting, collapsing. And here's the twist. You're not trapped. The door was never locked. You just never looked for it. This isn't just another video. It's the map to the exit. And if you follow closely, lesson by lesson, something strange might happen. The walls will vanish. The fear will shrink. And the system you thought was permanent will become optional. You are watching Billionaire OS, where we don't beg to play the game. We build the code to leave it. Let me show you how to disappear while staying 100% alive. Section 1, the silent collapse. The crash won't be televised. Imagine waking up tomorrow to find your life savings gone. Not stolen, not hacked, just unavailable. The screen says system maintenance, but it never turns back on. The bank tells you it's still there with a polite smile, but no, you can't withdraw it. No, they don't know when you can. No, they don't owe you an explanation. And just like that, you're frozen. Not by theft, but by silence. This isn't fiction. It's Lebanon, 2020. Argentina, 2001. Venezuela, almost every year. Entire nations watch the value of their currencies vanish. Whisper mode activated, not with an explosion, but a whisper. No alarms, no headlines, just a quiet rug pull. But here's the truth. Countries don't collapse like buildings. They collapse like relationships. Gradually, then all at once. By the time you realize it's over, you're already sleeping in the ruins. Have you ever wondered why collapses happen so quietly? If this resonates with you, type silent in the comments right now. I'm curious how many of you have felt this creeping unease. Because here's the truth, no one told you. Countries don't collapse like buildings. They collapse like relationships. Gradually, then all at once. By the time you realize it's over, you're already sleeping in the ruins. Let me paint you a lighter picture for a moment. It's like being in a bad marriage where you keep thinking things will get better. You ignore the red flags, the empty promises, the gaslighting. Until one day, you wake up and realize you've been living with a stranger who's been spending your money behind your back. Except, this stranger is your government, and divorce isn't an option. Unless you know the secret exits. This is the trap Alex realized he was in. He wasn't watching the news. He was watching the math. And the math said one thing: get out before everyone else figures it out. The sovereign individual sees this differently. He doesn't ask, is my country stable? He asks, is it solvent? He doesn't trust passports. He trusts mathematics. And he knows something terrifying. The governments you depend on are broke, not in theory, but in balance sheet reality. You are a liability. You consume more than you produce. And in desperate times, liabilities get liquidated, not with tanks, but with inflation, not with violence, but with devaluation. In 2025, the US alone added $1 trillion in debt every 100 days. Every major Western nation is running on IOUs wrapped in nationalism. And still, they print more, borrow more, and promise more to people who don't realize the game has changed. It's no longer pay taxes, get benefits. It's keep the machine alive long enough to harvest the last crop. And guess what that crop is? You. Your income, your data, your obedience, your belief that if you just stay still and play nice, the storm will pass. But here's what they don't tell you. The storm is the plan. Collapse is not an accident. It's the final business model. So, what does the sovereign individual do? He exits early, quietly, with no debate. He doesn't wait for the collapse to be televised, because by the time it is, the exits are sealed, the ATMs are offline, the flight bans are active, and the panic has begun. The sovereign doesn't panic, because he left before it was cool. And the best time to leave is always just before everyone else notices the smoke. But escaping the room means spotting what most people can't see, and what most can't emotionally accept. Because once you see it, you'll never unsee it. And that leads us to the next layer of the illusion, the one you carry in your pocket. Section 2, the digital feudalism. Tech isn't your tool, it's your leash. Picture this. A man sits in a coffee shop, sipping espresso, eyes locked on his MacBook. He's scrolling Twitter, trading crypto, listening to a podcast about sovereignty. He feels free, independent, untouchable. But here's the irony. He's doing all that on apps he doesn't own, on a device built by a company that can remotely shut him down, in a building under surveillance, connected to a bank that can freeze him, all powered by an identity the government issued him like a collar. He thinks he's free, but he's a digital serf. This is the trap Alex realized he was in. He wasn't free, he was just a premium user in a digital prison. Welcome to the new Middle Ages. Quick question, how many apps on your phone could survive without your real name attached? Count them and drop the number below. I bet it's less than 3. You see, in the past, power came from land. Kings ruled territory. Serfs worked the fields. If you disobeyed, you were exiled or executed. Simple. But today's kings don't wear crowns. They wear hoodies. They run platforms, not kingdoms. And you're not farming wheat anymore. You're farming attention, content, emotion, for a system that pays you in dopamine, not dignity. Try saying something controversial, something true. See how long you last. Try withdrawing $10,000 in cash. Watch the bank flinch. Watch the government flag you. Watch your name go from customer to case file. Soft, almost comedic tone. Here's a fun fact that might make you smile through the pain. Medieval serfs actually kept more of what they produced than you do. They gave about 20% to their lord. What's your effective tax rate when you add income tax, sales tax, property tax, and inflation? Yeah, progress is funny like that. But here's what made Alex different. He didn't just complain about the digital prison. He learned to hack it, not with code, but with knowledge that 99% of people don't have. The sovereign individual understands this. He doesn't use the system. He dances around it. He doesn't fight for likes. He builds leverage. He doesn't crave visibility. He cultivates invisibility. Because in the digital age, visibility is vulnerability. Every click is a fingerprint. Every login is a leash. Every follower is a potential witness in a trial you never signed up for. They don't need a prison if you stay inside the algorithm. And this is why the modern sovereign doesn't just learn how to build wealth. He learns how to disappear while building it. He encrypts his messages. He self-custodies his funds. He holds nothing the system can seize. He builds identities that cannot be canceled. Because he knows, you don't need a door to be trapped. A screen is enough. Now here's the twist that should chill your spine. In medieval times, you could escape the castle and disappear into the forest. But in 2025, the forest is the platform. You carry the castle in your pocket, and the drawbridge is always down, unless you build a digital forest of your own. So ask yourself, do you control your tools, or are you just a happy little peasant with a 5G? Because every click, every upload, every tap is a brick in the wall of your own digital prison. And if you're ready to break out, you'll need more than courage. You'll need a map. And that begins with understanding why location is no longer power. Section 3, the end of geography. Borders fell. But you're still thinking like a prisoner. Look around. Do you still believe you live in a country? Or do you live on the internet? Because the truth is, geography has already collapsed, but your mind hasn't caught up. The old world was simple. Your identity, your income, your future, all tied to where you were born. A flag, a language, a government. But now, your clients are in 5 countries. Your money lives on the blockchain. Your data floats on a cloud server in Singapore. Let's do a quick reality check. Think about your last 24 hours. How many of your meaningful interactions happen through a screen versus in your physical location? If you're like most people, it's 80% digital or more. Comment. Digital if this hits home. Lean in. Conspiratorial tone. You want to know a secret? While you're worried about income tax, they're playing a game you weren't told about. Georgia has a 1% tax regime for small businesses. Paraguay doesn't tax foreign income at all. The Bahamas? 0 income tax, 0 capital gains, 0 inheritance tax. These are the back doors in the global system, hidden in plain sight. And there are dozens more. Alex discovered this early. He realized borders weren't walls anymore. They were menus. And he started shopping. The sovereign individual knows this. Location no longer means control. In fact, it's a liability. Because where you are physically determines how easily you can be cornered. He lives by a new equation. Mobility is greater than loyalty. Jurisdiction arbitrage beats blind patriotism. He understands that power in the digital age doesn't come from owning land. It comes from knowing where not to be. While the average person still thinks in terms of citizenship, the sovereign individual thinks in terms of escape velocity. How fast can he move his money, his identity, his labor to somewhere safer, smarter, lighter? This isn't theory. This is the age of geo-freedom. Why do you think the smartest minds in crypto are moving to Dubai, Madeira, Singapore, El Salvador? Not because of beaches, because they understand. Taxes are optional when talent is mobile. Censorship is weak when speech is routed. Control is a joke when jurisdiction is just one airport away. Here's something that might lighten the mood. You know what's funny about border control? They stamp your passport like it matters, like that little ink mark has power. Meanwhile, your actual life, your real assets, your true connections, they're floating in the cloud, laughing at the concept of customs. I know what some of you are thinking right now. You're sitting there, listening to all this, and a voice in your head is screaming, "This is running away. We have a duty to stay and fix our country." And you know what? That's a valid feeling. It comes from a good place. It means you're a person with a conscience. But let me reframe that for you. Is a doctor selfish for putting on their own oxygen mask first before helping others on a plane that's going down? Your sovereignty isn't an act of abandoning the ship. It's the act of building a lifeboat and then showing others how to build their own. Borders are bureaucratic ghosts, lines on a map that no longer define your potential, only your vulnerabilities. And yet, the system still relies on one thing, that you'll feel guilty for leaving. Don't abandon your country. Stay and vote. Help fix the system. But the sovereign doesn't fix broken machines. He builds new ones outside the blast radius. He knows the only real country is between his ears. His passport is encrypted. His currency is decentralized. His residency is wherever the signal is strongest and the tax is lowest. And as the world gets more chaotic, more tribal, more desperate, this type of agility becomes not just useful, but essential for survival. Because the next phase of collapse won't come from tanks. It'll come from traps, frozen assets, travel bans, capital controls, algorithmic compliance. And if you're still tethered to the ground by sentiment, you'll be swept up like everyone else. So, let me ask you, are you a citizen or are you a customer shopping for the best deal? Because in this new world, the winners don't live anywhere. They exist everywhere. And that's why the smart ones are already leaving, quietly, efficiently, elegantly. They're not angry, they're not dramatic, they're just gone. But who exactly are these people? The answer may surprise you. Section 4, Exit Elites. Smart money doesn't protest, it vanishes. You won't find them on talk shows. They're not marching in protests. They're not tweeting angry hashtags or arguing in comment sections. They're already gone. They are the exit elites, the first generation of humans who became too agile to govern, too decentralized to tax, and too silent to censor. You've seen glimpses of them, even if you didn't recognize it. The crypto founder who renounced his citizenship and moved to Madeira, the software engineer who earns $400,000 a year remotely, pays zero tax, and lives in a jungle villa in Thailand. The investor whose assets are split across multi-sig wallets, offshore entities, cold storage, and legal shields so complex, even governments can't track them. Alex became one of them, not overnight, but step by calculated step. They don't flash Lambos, they flash invisibility, because they know the true flex in 2025 isn't wealth, it's stealth. Quick pause here. Before we dive deeper, take a moment to reflect. Have you ever met someone who seemed strangely unaffected by economic chaos? Someone who smiled during market crashes? That might have been one of them. If you have a story, share it below. I read every comment, and here's the shift that should change how you see everything. For most of history, money chased stability. Today, money chases flexibility. The sovereign individual doesn't seek safety from collapse. He uses collapse as propulsion. While the middle class clings to property, pensions, and political drama, the exit elites optimize for speed. They use second passports like gym cards. They treat tax codes like cheat sheets. They navigate governments the way hackers navigate firewalls. Not because they're anti-state, but because they understand the state is no longer the platform. It's the obstacle. Every minute spent fighting it is a minute wasted not building what comes next. And here's the most uncomfortable part. They look just like you. They're not born rich, they're just awake. Awake to the asymmetry of modern reality, that the tools of escape are already here, that the map to sovereignty is open source, that the doors are wide open, but only visible to those who dare question the room. Whisper mode. You know, I want to share something personal with you. I once asked one of these exit elites what the single biggest change for him was. I expected a complex answer about crypto or law, but he just smiled and said, "Pause. I stopped asking for permission to live my life." Another pause. That's it. That's the whole revolution. Normal tone resumes. Simple, right? But how many of us are still asking? And while the world argues over left and right, they go up. While people beg for scraps of freedom, they quietly withdraw their consent. They don't need to be represented. They don't need a party. They are the party, and it's invite only. So you have a choice. Keep playing a rigged game or change tables entirely. But how, you ask? It starts by understanding something even more unsettling. Your government is not a parent, it's a business. And to them, you're a line item. And when the budget gets tight, guess who's the first to be reclassified? Section 5, the age of exit. You don't have to fight. You can walk away. We were raised on stories of revolution, that when systems become corrupt, you rise, that when leaders lie, you march. That change comes from protest, from sacrifice, from standing your ground. But that story is obsolete, because in the digital age, you don't have to burn the castle. You can just walk out the side door and build a better one somewhere else. This is the age of exit, the greatest silent migration in human history, not of bodies, but of minds, capital, and belief systems. People aren't storming palaces. They're unplugging from the matrix. They're turning their skills into income streams, turning their phones into passports, turning their values into protocols, all outside the reach of any nation state. And the system hates it, because exit is the ultimate act of disobedience. Not loud, not angry, but effective. No government fears your tweets. They fear your money disappearing offshore. They fear your children getting homeschooled into sovereignty. They fear your ability to not need them anymore. Comic relief moment. Here's a moment of levity in all this heaviness. You know what's hilarious? Governments spending millions on retention campaigns to keep their citizens from leaving. It's like a bad relationship where one person hires a mariachi band to win back their ex. The desperation is almost endearing if it wasn't so expensive. That's the quiet power of exit. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait for consensus. It just leaves. And when enough people leave, the system shrinks. This terrifies those in control, because the entire illusion, the taxes, the surveillance, the regulations, all depend on one fragile idea, that you have to stay, that you have no other option, that exiting is impossible, illegal, or dangerous. But the sovereign individual knows that's a lie. Alex knew it was a lie. He tested it. First with small steps, a bank account here, a business structure there. Each move proved the cage was weaker than advertised. He understands that in a hyper-connected world, staying is a choice, and choice is power, so he makes a new choice. He exits. Not just physically, but emotionally, financially, ideologically. He lets go of needing approval. He lets go of fixing the broken machine. He stops arguing. He starts building. And yes, the exit path isn't for everyone. It requires discomfort. It requires skill. It requires facing the reality that no one is coming to save you. But once you cross that mental threshold, you realize something beautiful. The cage was never locked. You were just trained not to touch the door. And the door? It leads to something even more powerful than protest. It leads to privacy, to protection, to possibility, to the most powerful tool in the sovereign's arsenal, encrypted wealth. Because leaving the room is one thing, but making sure they can't follow you, that's where crypto comes in. Section 6. The crypto keycard. Encrypted wealth is not speculation. It's escape. They told you crypto was a bubble, a scam, a toy for nerds and criminals. But that was never the real fear. What they really feared was that you'd figure out what it actually is. Not an investment, not a bet, not even money, but a key. To walk out of the burning room and slam the door behind you. This wasn't just an investment for Alex. This was the key he forged to unlock his own cage. Crypto, when self-custodied, privately held, and intelligently used, is the first tool in modern history that lets you hold your sovereignty in your own hands. No permission, no bank, no middleman, no national ID, just you and the math. Stop here for a second. Close your eyes and imagine holding a physical key that could unlock any border, any bank restriction, any financial cage. That's what we're talking about. If you've ever felt that power, even for a moment, type key below. Let's see who gets it. The sovereign individual doesn't buy crypto to get rich. He buys it to not be poor when the system decides to trap everyone else. He knows what happens when fiat dies. He's studied Zimbabwe, Venezuela, Lebanon. He's seen governments freeze accounts, debank opposition, devalue overnight. He knows the system doesn't warn you before it changes the rules. That's why he doesn't store his savings in institutions. He stores them in encryption. Technical insider secret. You think a hardware wallet is enough? That's kindergarten. The real players use multi-sig setups with keys distributed across multiple jurisdictions. 3 of 5 signatures required. 1 key in a Swiss bank vault. 1 with a trusted lawyer in Singapore. 1 memorized. 2 in separate secure locations. Even if someone gets 2 keys, they get nothing. That's sovereignty through mathematics. He uses multi-sig wallets. He distributes seed phrases across jurisdictions. He moves silently across chains, across protocols, across firewalls. Because he understands something most people still deny. The right to own your money is the right to own your life. Crypto is not a hedge. It's a lifeboat, a shield, a language of exit that governments don't speak yet. And yes, they will try to regulate it, block it, tax it, shame it. But it's too late. The technology exists. The exit door has been opened. And now the only question is, do you walk through it? Comic moment. Let me lighten this up with a truth bomb wrapped in humor. You know what's funny about banks? They'll lecture you about the risks of crypto while they're literally creating money from thin air and calling it fractional reserve banking. It's like a cigarette company warning you about the dangers of jogging. Because crypto doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care about your politics. It doesn't care if you believe in it or not. It's just code. Immutable, global, unstoppable. And in the age of surveillance money, programmable controls, and financial blacklisting, crypto is no longer optional. It's essential. Because when the system starts asking you for more proof, more compliance, more silence, crypto says, no thanks. It lets you become water, untraceable, unfreezable, unstoppable. And once you feel that kind of sovereignty, fiat will feel like a leash you didn't know was there. But there's a deeper truth here too. Even if you hold the keys to freedom, you must first escape the prison built inside your own mind. Because the real war is internal. Section 7. The sovereign mind. Escape is a skill, but it starts with perception. The most dangerous prison isn't made of steel. It's made of stories. Stories like, you need to stay and help fix the system. Good citizens don't run, they vote. If you leave, you're selfish, ungrateful, a traitor. These aren't facts. They're emotional booby traps, wired into your brain from birth, installed by schools, media, family, and the very institutions that benefit from your obedience. And they worked, because even as you read this, a part of you might feel guilty. A part of you might whisper, but maybe it's not that bad. But I've built so much here. But what about my friends, my roots, my community? That's the genius of the Matrix. It convinces you to defend your own captivity. Alex told me the hardest part wasn't learning about offshore accounts or crypto. It was deprogramming his mind, letting go of the guilt, the false loyalty, the need for approval from people still trapped in the system. But the sovereign individual knows, before you exit physically, you must first exit psychologically. You must uninstall the mental software that equates discomfort with danger and freedom with risk. Time for some inner work. Pause this video for 30 seconds. Write down one belief about loyalty or citizenship that makes you uncomfortable to question. Just one. Then come back. I'll wait. He understands that escape is not an event. It's a mindset upgrade. It begins with questions. What if loyalty is not a virtue, but a mechanism of control? What if safety isn't found in the familiar, but in adaptability? What if freedom is not given, but taken, silently, daily, and without apology? This is the internal war between who you were programmed to be and who you're becoming. Because you can have crypto, passports, offshore entities, digital income, but if fear still runs your inner dialogue, you're not sovereign. You're just a serf with better tools. True sovereignty means divorcing your identity from the place that raised you and marrying your destiny to the world that calls you. It means letting go of nostalgia as a compass and replacing it with clarity. It means realizing that no government, no border, no flag can ever define you more deeply than your own values. So, yes, this part is painful. This part breaks illusions, it might break relationships, it might even break you, just enough to set you free. But once you clear the fog, the decisions become easy. The next steps become obvious. And the voices that once paralyzed you go silent. Because you're not asking, is this allowed? You're asking, is this aligned? And when your inner compass is true, no law, no shame, no threat can shake you. That's when you stop being a runner and start being a builder. But even builders need each other, because sovereignty was never meant to be done alone. Section 8, the digital tribe. Don't escape alone. Build a parallel society. There's a reason wolves hunt in packs, and sovereigns, they build in tribes. Because leaving the system alone may feel powerful, but staying free requires infrastructure. The sovereign individual knows this. He's not just exiting a country, he's exiting a consensus. The beliefs, behaviors, and systems that once gave him identity are no longer his. That's why he seeks others who see through the illusion too. Not just fellow runners, fellow architects, builders of parallel economies, nomads of shared frequency, founders of invisible nations, connected not by borders, but by values, code, and encrypted trust. These are the digital tribes, formed in Discord groups, private telegrams, anonymous DAOs, offshore meetups. They are not loud, they are not mainstream, they are anti-fragile micro-networks built on principles, not passports. Real talk for a moment. The loneliest part of waking up isn't seeing the cage, it's realizing most people prefer it. That's why finding your tribe isn't just strategic, it's sanity-preserving. If you're looking for yours, drop tribe below. Maybe you'll find each other in the comments. Alex found his tribe in the most unexpected way. A random DM from someone who noticed his questions in a forum. That one connection led to 10 more. Within months, he had a network spanning continents. People who got it. People who were building the same future. And when one member is attacked, banned, frozen, canceled, the others route around. Like a swarm, like a neural net, like sovereignty with backup. The digital tribe replaces the false promise of state protection with a better reality. Mutual defense through voluntary alignment. Forget fake social contracts. This is real-time resilience, crypto-native trust, remote collaboration, networked self-defense, and most importantly, emotional sanity. Because leaving the system is lonely if you do it wrong. That's the trap. They want you isolated, disconnected, scared. But the sovereign doesn't exit into exile. He exits into a new civilization. A civilization without permission, slips, without surveillance, without shame. One built on whispers, on invites, on encrypted links passed through DMs like sacred relics. And inside these tribes, people don't ask for titles. They ask, what skills do you bring? What problem are you solving? What truth are you willing to die on? There are no followers, only nodes. Each person becomes a server, hosting a small piece of the new world, and slowly, the legacy system fades. Not with a bang, but with a million quiet exits. So ask yourself, are you still chasing belonging from people who need you small? Or are you ready to join a network that expands you? Because the moment you link with others who've exited, you stop feeling like a rebel and start feeling like a pioneer. But even pioneers need tools. And that brings us to the sovereign's most underrated weapon, his exit stack, a portable freedom system that replaces everything the state once provided. Section 9, the exit stack. Freedom now has a toolkit, and you can learn it. Forget ideology, forget slogans. In the new world, freedom isn't something you demand, it's something you deploy. And every sovereign individual you admire, they're not free because they yelled louder. They're free because they built their exit stack, a personalized toolkit that makes the state optional. This is Alex's stack, not theory. This is the exact blueprint he used to render the system irrelevant to his life. It doesn't take millions, it takes modules. Module 1, crypto capital. Not just holding tokens, but knowing how to move them, hide them, secure them. Knowing the difference between custodial wallets and cold storage. Knowing that your true bank is a 24-word seed phrase no one can touch. Module 2, jurisdictional arbitrage. You don't live in one place, you shop for nations. Residency in Panama, bank account in Singapore. Tax base in UAE, citizenship by investment in Vanuatu. The sovereign doesn't pledge allegiance. He signs contracts and rewrites them as needed. Insider, secret alert. You think an LLC protects you? That's child's play. The real players use a two-headed dragon structure, an offshore LLC in a place like Nevis for anonymity, which is in turn owned by an irrevocable trust in the Cook Islands. Why? Because the Cook Islands law doesn't recognize foreign court orders. It's a legal black hole for anyone trying to seize your assets. Module 3, encrypted communication. If they can hear you, they can stop you. So, the sovereign goes dark. Signal, Proton, hardware wallets, burner phones, mesh networks. Module 4, legal shielding. LLCs, trusts, foundations, multi-country entity structures. He doesn't hide wealth, he fragments it. So, when the system comes knocking, there's nothing to seize, only puzzle pieces scattered across continents. Module 5, location independence. He doesn't just travel, he relocates his mind, body, income, and risk on command. No boss, no office, no anchor, just Wi-Fi and wisdom. Module 6, sovereign psychology. He doesn't panic, he doesn't ask for permission. He doesn't apologize for escaping a burning house while others argue about the wallpaper. His mind is his fortress, and freedom, his baseline state. Here's your homework, and yes, I'm giving you homework because sovereignty requires action. Pick one module from this list. Just one. Research it for 48 hours. Then come back and tell me what you learned. Deal? This is the exit stack, not a fantasy, a formula. One that replaces every function the state once monopolized with protocols, networks, and skills you can learn. So no more excuses, no more waiting for elections, no more whining about the system. Because freedom isn't about resisting tyranny, it's about rendering it irrelevant. And the more people who install this stack, the weaker the matrix becomes. One sovereign is a nuisance, 1,000 are a movement, 1,000,000, a new civilization. But beware, the system will notice, it always does, and when it realizes people are slipping through the cracks, it will panic, and that panic will take the shape of moral outrage. Section 10, the moral trap. When you escape, they call you selfish. You didn't burn anything, you didn't break the law, you didn't riot or revolt, you simply left. And yet, they look at you with disgust. They say you're running away, that you're a coward, that you should stay and fight, that you owe something to a system that never asked before it took. But that's the final trap, not economic, not legal, moral. Addressing the skeptic directly, I know what some of you are thinking right now. You're sitting there, listening to all this, and a voice in your head is screaming, "This is selfish. This is cowardly. We have a duty to stay and fix our country." Pause. And you know what? That's a valid feeling. It comes from a good place. It means you're a person with a conscience. But let me reframe that for you. Is a doctor selfish for putting on their own oxygen mask first before helping others on a plane that's going down? Your sovereignty isn't an act of abandoning the ship. It's the act of building a lifeboat and then showing others how to build their own. True charity isn't being forced to pay for a broken system. It's having the freedom and resources to help causes you actually believe in. The sovereign individual knows when the system loses its grip on your wallet and your vote, it grabs at your soul. It says, "How dare you leave while others suffer?" It frames your exit as betrayal. It paints sovereignty as sociopathy, because moral guilt is the last leash, and it tightens when everything else fails. But here's what they never tell you. You didn't cause the collapse. You just refused to collapse with it. You didn't abandon the tribe. You created a new one. You didn't break the social contract. You simply noticed it was never signed. Light moment. Let me share something that might help you sleep better at night. You know what's actually selfish? Staying in a burning building and expecting everyone else to put out the fire while you complain about the smoke. The sovereign doesn't complain. He builds better buildings and leaves the door open for others. This guilt is engineered. It's a feature of every crumbling empire. Rome did it, the Soviets did it, and now your nation does it, turning exit into heresy. But the sovereign doesn't fall for emotional extortion. He knows the difference between compassion and compliance. Because staying in a burning house doesn't make you brave, it makes you flammable. And every moment you spend trying to convince people you're not a bad person for leaving is a moment you could spend building a better world. The sovereign builds silently, lovingly, without drama, without need for applause. And if people want to follow, they're welcome. But if they want to curse from the ruins, that's their business. Your duty isn't to explain your exit. Your duty is to make sure the door stays open for those who one day realize the system was never their home. Because here's the cosmic irony. The sovereign isn't selfish. He's just early. He's the first to see the fire, the first to feel the cracks, the first to bet his future on a different story. Not because he's heartless, but because he knows love without freedom is just servitude wrapped in a smile. So next time someone asks, "Why don't you stay and fix it?" you smile, you pause, and you say, "I did. I fixed it for me first. You're welcome to come too." And that, my friend, isn't abandonment, it's leadership. But if you want to lead, if you want to truly master this art of invisible power, there's one last enemy to defeat: the need to be seen. Section 11. The Invisible Empire. True power leaves no footprint. You were raised to be visible, to be seen, verified, validated. From grades to job titles, from likes to passports, your worth was always measured by visibility. But the sovereign knows what they can see, they can tax, they can shame, they can freeze, they can cancel. And so he chooses a different path, not because he's afraid, but because he understands that in the modern world, invisibility is the new invincibility. His empire isn't on Instagram. It's in offshore holdings, in protocol layers, in pseudonymous income streams, in trusts and tunnels and tokenized assets that never touch his name. He doesn't boast. He builds. He doesn't flex. He vanishes. You won't see his lifestyle. You'll feel its absence from the collapse, because the sovereign doesn't need to prove he made it. He just needs to ensure no one can take it. Pop quiz. What's more powerful, 1 million followers or 1 million in untraceable assets? Trick question. The answer is the assets, plus the wisdom to never mention them. If you understand this, you're already thinking like a sovereign. He knows the moment he brags, he bleeds. The moment he seeks validation, he becomes visible, and visibility is liability. This is the paradox of real freedom. The more sovereign you become, the quieter you get. Your power becomes ambient. Your wealth becomes untrackable. Your mind becomes untouchable. And your enemies, they can't fight what they can't find. This doesn't mean hiding out of fear. It means mastering strategic silence. Let the world scream. Let it beg for attention. Let it burn for likes and retweets and artificial relevance. The sovereign is already elsewhere, watching, laughing softly, wiring another server, seeding another income stream, helping another ally escape. Because his empire is built on code and character, not clout. And if you want to join him, if you want to live in that hidden dimension of leverage and longevity, you must release the last addiction, the need to be seen. Once you do, everything changes. You don't need credit. You don't need applause. You don't need permission. You just need one final step, not to escape the system, but to transcend it, Because once you stop reacting to collapse and start orchestrating your future, you become something even more powerful than a rebel. You become a myth, and in the age of chaos, myths shape reality. Section 12. The Mythmaker's Blueprint. You are the system now. History doesn't remember those who obeyed. It remembers those who rewrote the rules. Who lived so far outside the norm had no choice but to adjust around them. You've made it this far. You understand the collapse. You've built your exit. You've escaped the leash of geography, currency, and identity. But now what? You don't just run, you replace, you redefine. You become a mythmaker, not by writing books, but by living as proof that a different world is not only possible, it's already here. The sovereign individual doesn't preach, he demonstrates. He earns without borders. He loves without paperwork. He moves without panic. He gives without guilt. And slowly, silently, people around him start to notice. Wait, how is he doing this? Why doesn't the chaos touch him? Why is he so calm when everyone else is scrambling? That's when the real revolution begins. Not on Twitter, not in voting booths, but in whispers, in coffee shops, in encrypted chats, in small, quiet moments when someone realizes there's another way. The sovereign doesn't need to convince. He just lives. His life is the ultimate rebuttal to fear. His peace is the protest. His prosperity is the prophecy. Because he knows something others don't. The system didn't collapse on him. It collapsed without him. And now, he is the system. A mobile, resilient, self-contained node of freedom. With his own laws, his own economy, his own tribe. This is the final evolution. Not an escapee, not a survivor, but a builder of worlds. You're no longer trying to dodge the fire. You're designing the rain. You're planting seeds while others hoard matches. And your children? They won't inherit debt, fear, or shame. They'll inherit maps, protocols, and a bloodline of sovereignty. So here's the final truth. You don't owe the old world anything. But the new world, it's waiting on you. Not to post, not to complain, but to begin. To build the empire so quietly powerful. Even the collapse won't touch it. You are not a refugee of the old. You are the architect of the next. Welcome to Billionaire OS. Welcome to Myth Status. Alex, he's out there somewhere, building, teaching, living proof that the door was never locked. Maybe you'll meet him one day. Maybe you'll become him. Maybe you already are. So let's recap, but not like a list. Let's relive the transformation. You came in chasing answers, maybe just curious, maybe already watching the cracks widen under your feet. And now you've seen it. The silent collapse is already happening. The digital feudalism has rebranded your slavery. The end of geography means your cage is portable. And the exit elites? They're already gone. You've stepped through lessons most never will. You've seen how crypto isn't an asset, it's a keycard. You've stared down the moral trap that keeps people clinging to ruins. You've met your new tribe, not loud, not visible, but sovereign in spirit. You've installed your exit stack, brick by encrypted brick. And most of all, you've felt the shift from needing the system to becoming the system. Now here's what you do next. Comment below with one word, exit. It's not for me, it's for you. It marks the moment you stopped watching and started becoming. And if this hit a nerve, if this rewired something in you, share it with one friend who needs to see the door. You don't need to save the world. You just need to whisper to the ones listening. And if you're serious, if you want the advanced blueprint, the private playbooks, the silent network, hit subscribe, because Billionaire OS isn't a channel, it's a passport to a future you won't have to ask permission to live in. Remember this, the most sovereign man in the room is the one who doesn't need to prove he's free. Be that man, be that myth. We'll see you on the other side, where Alex is waiting, where freedom isn't demanded, where it's deployed. Your move,